You're probably thinking, what could a massive crypto collapse possibly have to do with a national economic crisis from 40 years ago? Well, it might sound like a stretch, but stick with me. We're about to connect the dots and show you how the exact blueprint for some of today's biggest digital meltdowns was actually written decades ago in Brazil.
So here's the big question. Can history really predict the future, especially in a world that moves as fast as crypto? Turns out when it comes to human behavior and, really flawed systems, the patterns are kind of spookily consistent.
Okay, let's start with a modern disaster you almost certainly remember, the whole Terra/Luna fiasco. Their stablecoin UST was supposed to be worth exactly $1, right? But when it started to slip, this automated, frantic process kicked in. It started printing its sister token Luna like crazy to try and prop it up. And that created this vicious death spiral. The more Luna it printed, the more the price of Luna crashed, which meant it had to print even more Luna.
And the scale here, it is just mind-boggling. In just a few days, the system spit out over 6 trillion Luna tokens. It was completely uncontrolled algorithmic money printing that just vaporized billions of dollars and completely wrecked the whole ecosystem. It was an absolute train wreck.
But here's the thing, and this is the whole point of our deep dive today. This wasn't some totally new, out-of-nowhere event that was unique to crypto. This exact kind of feedback loop, this death spiral, it has a powerful real-world precedent. We're talking about a 40-year-old blueprint.
So let's hop in the time machine and rewind to Brazil from 1980 to 1994. The entire country was trapped in this devastating hyperinflation crisis. And at the very heart of it was a problem that's going to sound very, very familiar: decentralized money printing. To give you a sense of what we're talking about, just forget the trillions of Luna tokens for a second and look at this number. In 1990 alone, prices in Brazil shot up by almost 3,000%. Just try to imagine your life savings becoming worthless in a single year. That was the reality for millions of people.
So how on earth does this happen? Well, this quote from our source material absolutely nails it. It all started with the government spending more money than it had. A pretty common story. But the real poison was the system itself. Brazil had a system where it wasn't just one central bank that could create money.
And this is where it gets really wild. Just look at this direct parallel. On the left, in Brazil, you had all these different state banks and the giant Banco do Brasil, and they could all basically print money to cover their own losses, using these special accounts that nobody was really watching. And on the right, well, that's the world of DeFi. You've got different algorithms, different governance groups, all with the ability to mint new tokens. It's the exact same fundamental flaw: way too many hands on the printing press.
So this setup basically turned the entire Brazilian economy into this out-of-control chaos machine. Every group, a state governor, a federal agency, was justifying their own money printing by blaming the inflation caused by everyone else. It was a truly vicious cycle that just kept feeding on itself.
And this timeline, wow, it just perfectly shows how trapped they were. It's a story of failure, over and over again. 6 different economic plans, one right after the other. Plano Cruzado, Plano Bresser, Plano Verão. They tried freezing prices, they changed the currency again and again. But as you can see, nothing worked for long, because they never fixed the root problem, that decentralized printing press.
They got so desperate at one point, they tried the Plano collar, and this was extreme. The government literally reached into everyone's bank accounts overnight and confiscated and froze 80% of all the money in the country. Can you even imagine? And guess what? It still didn't work. The inflation just came roaring back because that chaos machine was still running underneath it all. But here's the twist in the story. While the entire country was falling apart, one group figured out how to get very, very rich from all of it. The private banks weren't just surviving hyperinflation, they had mastered it. They did it with this kind of devious but brilliant strategy called the float mechanism. So here's how it worked. They would take your regular bank deposit, which was losing value by the minute, and they'd instantly go buy government bonds that were protected from inflation. Then they'd just hold those bonds for a single day, or even just overnight, capture that massive inflation rate as pure profit, and then give you your original, now devalued money back. It was a license to print money, fueled by the country's own destruction. And we're not talking about some small-time hustle here. As this chart shows, during the peak of the crisis, this float revenue accounted for more than 1/3 of the entire private banking sector's income. And this created a really dangerous situation.
The banks actually became addicted to the hyperinflation. Their profits depended on the chaos continuing.
So you ended up with this completely bizarre, toxic ecosystem. You had the state-run banks cranking up the inflation, and you had the private banks sitting there expertly raking in profits from the mess. But here's the punchline. When the music finally stopped in 1994 with a plan that actually worked, both of them went broke. The creators of the problem and the ones who profited from it, they both collapsed and needed massive government bailouts.
Okay, so let's bring it all back to today. What does this whole 14-year crisis teach us about the world of DeFi? Well, it basically gives us the ultimate stress test for our portfolios.
First off, we can build a really simple risk checklist for stablecoins based on this. So, fiat-backed coins like USDC, they have the lowest Brazil risk because one entity is in control. Crypto-collateralized ones like DAI are somewhere in the middle. They really need strong, smart governance to stay safe. But the algorithmic ones, well, they have the absolute highest risk of repeating this exact kind of feedback loop disaster.
So what are the warning signs you should be looking for? Think of this as your Brazil-like system detector. Number 1, any project with multiple, uncoordinated ways to mint new tokens. Number 2, governance where lots of different groups can all vote to just create more tokens. And the big one, any system whose solution to a crisis is to simply print more of its own token to fix the problem. Sound familiar? That is the Terra LUNA story, right there.
And here's the cool part. Just like those Brazilian banks, you can actually build strategies around this knowledge. Instead of just hoping for stability, you could look for assets that are anti-fragile, things that actually get stronger when there's chaos. This could mean prioritizing assets that have inflation protection built right in, or figuring out how to be the one providing liquidity when everyone else is scrambling for an exit. It's kind of like a modern-day version of the float.
And really, it all comes down to this one simple truth. Any system, any project, can look amazing when the markets are calm. The real test, the one that separates a solid project from a ticking time bomb, is how it acts when it's under extreme pressure.
And that leaves us with this final, massive question. In crypto, we're all about building this new decentralized financial world. But as Brazil's history screams at us, if the answer to who controls the printing press is, well, kinda everyone and no one, you might just be building a much faster, more efficient chaos machine.
If this kind of historical detective work fascinates you, you can dive into a lot more of it from the source of this explainer, Sagjik's Apothecary. Just scan the code on your screen.
Thanks so much for sticking with us. It's a pretty powerful reminder that in finance, the most futuristic problems often have the oldest answers.